In tonight's episode, we'll be doing something different. Instead of talking about who wore what, where, and why, we will be talking about who must wear what, where, and why. Yes, you heard it here first. The first Monday of May is upon us, which means the stars are about to align and walk up the Met stairs with the most glamorous, expensive, and exclusive gowns in the whole world. This theme is Karl Lagerfeld, a line of beauty. It's a celebration of Karl Lagerfeld's years as a fashion designer, creative director, and a fashion legend. With a 7-decade-long career, it should be no fuss trying to find a dress that could fit you, right? Well, no. Because if you think about it, if it is a fashion exhibit, all the archive pieces are going to be inside the exhibit. So good luck trying to find all those dresses, ladies. And if you think about it, Karl has worked at Balmain, Chloe, Pateau, Fendi, Coco Chanel, and his namesake brand, Karl Lagerfeld. So there are so many inspirations to choose from, and I can't just wait to see what designers come out with just from their imagination and taking away from the legacy that Karl Lagerfeld has left from all his work and all these brands that he's worked with. Now, there's this game I like to play a week before the Met, which is the Met Gala predictions, where I sit down the whole night and fuss about who I think will be wearing what. All the celebrities I've been following for the past couple of months to see who has visited which designer, who had lunch with this designer in press. I mean, it's all like, it's nothing hectic, but if the Hawks or the FBI or the CIAs want my help, I can always lend a helping hand. Now, before we go to the predictions for the Met 2023, Vogue magazine released a cover in which they are celebrating Karl Lagerfeld's legacy. And in that cover, they asked 10 designers to dress 10 supermodels in what would be a re-envisioned version of Karl Lagerfeld's aesthetic according to them and the house they belong under. So I can't wait to see what they came up with. Let's go. Now, I'm very obsessed with Valentino's Pierpaolo's take on Karl Lagerfeld's legacy. You can tell by the flowers that it is a Karl Lagerfeld inspired look, because the white flower is very synonymous with Coco Chanel, which is the brand that Karl Lagerfeld worked under for so long until he tragically passed away. The white flower is very Chanel. The navy and the white contrast is also a very personal aesthetic of Karl Lagerfeld's image. But also, you can tell by the feathers that this is a Pierpaolo look, because for the past couple of shows in Valentino, he actually came up with this aesthetic of having feathers randomly pop up anywhere. So I like the fact that in the same design, you can tell the aesthetic of the inspiration, and you can also tell the aesthetic of the designer, which is a very good marriage and a very good combo. So the next one is Shalom Hallo. She is wearing a custom Tom Brown Karl Lagerfeld's reimagined gown. I personally think this is my favorite because let me tell you why. First of all, the tweed, the classic Chanel tweed, is making an entire gown with an entire Chanel tweed is very much camp if you think about it. And also this look is very menswear inspired, which was a very personal aesthetic of Karl Lagerfeld's personal imagery. I mean, all the pictures I know of Karl Lagerfeld, he is wearing a shirt and a tie. So menswear is very important to him. Hence, Tom Brown wanted to highlight that with making an entire gown menswear inspired. But also, the dress is so Tom Brown. Like, if you don't know what I mean, Tom Brown really loves playing with this idea of reconstruction, deconstruction in a gown, and you can tell by the outfits he made for Kourtney Kardashian and Travis Barker at last year's Met Ball was very much the Tom Brown aesthetic. You know, you can just have a glance at this dress and you can tell that this is a Tom Brown original. But when you look at the fabric, when you look at the color, when you look at the cut, you can tell that there's some Karl Lagerfeld inspo behind this, which is also a very good combination and marriage between the two brands. So I would love to have seen this on the red carpet, actually. Next, we have Kendall Jenner in Versace. I am struggling to find the referencing here, and there's nothing more I can say because I'm struggling to find the referencing here. Jun Takahashi's imagination of the Chanel suit is very Chanel-y. You know, he said he wanted to imagine a world where Karl Lagerfeld and Coco Chanel both exist at the same time and are at the helm of Chanel. And I think this kind of does come out like that, because when you look at the tweed is very Chanel. It's the classic Coco Chanel look. But also when you look at the pearls, I think one of the aesthetics that Karl Lagerfeld was successfully sold when he was still the creative director, when he was still alive, was the Chanel pearls. You know, you can, if I'm thinking of a Chanel look, in my mind, the first thing is pair it with a pearl earring or a pearl necklace or a pearl anything. So I think him mixing both these elements are really very visibly Chanel. And also this hat, I think this hat Naomi Campbell wore in the 90s haute couture Chanel show. So it's very nice to see him come up with these references that if you know, you know, but also they are so camp, they are so, I think the hat could be worn at the Met Gala. I don't think that the suits is very Met Gala material, but yeah, that is just how I feel. Christopher John Rogers decided to pay homage to Karl Lagerfeld's time at Fendi. Now, Fendi Couture is very rooted in craftsmanship, and it's very rooted in the construction. And with that being said, Christopher John Rogers decided to go with this dress, which is a multiple shades of pink. It's giving a very ombre vibe, but most importantly, 250 pieces of organza were used to make this dress, and they had to be hand sewn and hand stitched, and that is what makes it so, I think, Karl in a way, or very much like Anton? Exactly. John Galliano under Maizo Majora went through with the direction of polka dots and pearls. Now, those two eras are very important in Karl's legacy, because the polka dots, he actually designed a bag under his namesake label, Karl Lagerfeld, that had full-on polka dots, but also the pearls are an aesthetic which he introduced when he was the creative director of Chanel. So mixing those together, it was a very good idea. I don't necessarily think this is a strong look for the Met Gala, but I think this is the aesthetic, the story behind the design makes so much sense. Here we have supermodel Naomi Campbell, photographed with the only cat I would wanna switch lives with. Yes, Karl Lagerfeld's cat, Chopin. Here Naomi is wearing this Balmain by Olivier Rousteing look, and if you instantly you would not think that there is a cross-referencing to the two, but if you think about it, Olivier went deep down into Karl Lagerfeld's career when he was still the creative director of Balmain. This is the look that he introduced, the very lined small waist and the broad shoulders in menswear and even women's wear suits is what Karl Lagerfeld is responsible for. So for him to go that deep down in the archives and grab something is very impeccable. Also, the fact that Olivier Rousteing is the creative director of Balmain, so he would definitely want to do something that feels natural and that feels like very true to the house that is in, as someone who has been a Karl Lagerfeld successor. Here we have Shito Abe's interpretation of Karl Lagerfeld, and I think this is a very feminine and sleek look. It's a very feminine interpretation of Karl's aesthetic, which is something that we haven't seen a lot of times, because when people think Karl, they think the shirts, the tie. But also, I love the fact that he was able to cross-reference the contrast of the black and white. First of all, is very Karl Lagerfeld, and it's very appealing. But what is very important here is the juxtaposition of the menswear top, which is the collar and the tie, but also the flowiness of the dress. It's very like, very feminine and very soft, which is something that because Karl Lagerfeld did a lot of Chanel suits, so it's something that we've not come to know of Karl, but it's so good to see someone do a very feminine interpretation of that. I would definitely love to see this on a red carpet, not necessarily of the Met Gala, but of any red carpet. And at Gucci, we all know Gucci, more is more is more is more. So Gucci currently doesn't have a creative director, so we don't know who designed this look because they just cited Gucci. But Bella Gigi Hadid did model it, and this is such a very minimalist and very camp look, which is a good marriage between Chanel or Carl and Gucci, because you can see by the beadwork that they said more is more is more is more, which is so Gucci. Gucci is a brand that is so camp, so in your face. But Chanel or Carl is very subtle, it's very ladylike, it's very poised, very reserved, and you can tell that by their collar work and the actual design of the garment outside the beadwork, that it's a very laid back Karl Lagerfeld or Coco Chanel look. Simone Rocha decided to do something very iconic. Now, if you have been following Karl Lagerfeld's career, especially at Chanel, you would know that a Chanel show is not a Chanel show without a Chanel bride. And this interpretation of the Chanel bride is so gorgeous. I love the fact that as much as it's a Chanel bride, it's also very much inspired by the feminism that, or the feminineness that Karl Lagerfeld discovered, or rather portrayed when he was at Chloe. You know, the dress is body hugging, it's very voluminous, it's very feminine, you know, it touches all the curves, it hugs the curves, it shows all the parts that women would naturally want to show off. So it's a very good interpretation of the Chanel bride, it's a very good interpretation of Karl Lagerfeld at Chloe, but also the non-traditionalness of it make it such a perfect Chanel bride, because if you know the history of the Chanel brides, it has never been a full-length gown that a normal person would go down the aisle with. It has always been something that is very camp or punk or very very different or very Catholic or very different from what a traditional bride would wear. So I think Simone Rocha's interpretation was very good, and the fact that they were able to play with two different eras was quite iconic, if you ask me. So those were the 10 looks that Vogue had for the Vogue May shoot, which I think, you know, something that was not in Vogue, which I wish I could have seen, because John Galliano, one of my favorite designers of all time, by the way, John Galliano, by Maison Margiela by John Galliano, was also asked to design a gown. And there's something that Karl had always said. Karl had always said, everything begins with the sketch, right? And there is this collection. I'm not sure from which year it was, the Maison Margiela by John Galliano collection, where there was a white coat, there was a white dress coat, and a face, it's like a sketch of a face, was hand sewn on the white coat. And I think that line for me would have inspired me to do something like that. If I see someone on the red carpet like a Katy Perry arriving in that, I'll be so impressed, because it goes, I feel like inspiration just goes beyond visuals. Inspiration can go as far as what did someone say, what did someone do, what did someone represent in society. And I think when Karl Lagerfeld said, like, he sketches all his looks, he's been sketching ever since he was a little boy. And for me, something that is very visibly a sketch would make so much sense at the Met Gala. If any of the guys would want to show up in that, I'd be gagging. So without wasting any further time, I feel like I've been talking for the past hour. I am so sorry. Anyway, let's dive deep into what Met Gala pairings do, or would I like to see at next week's Met. So first of all, I want to see Kris Jenner in a tweed suit. I think Kris Jenner makes so much sense as she's a boss, you know, and Karl Lagerfeld was a boss. So if Kris Jenner would come up in a Chanel tweed suit, but make it a very Karl Lagerfeld look. That would be so iconic because they were friends, and Karl Lagerfeld really loved Chris and the Kardashian family, which I don't understand where you guys' rumors that the Kardashian family is not invited to the Met are coming from. Weird, if you ask me. But yeah, I think this is very like that would be an interesting thing to see at the Met Ball. Maybe not like a normal suit, but like a very Tom Brown. You know, if Christiana would come in that Tom Brown suit, that would be like iconic. Also, next I have Naomi Campbell as a Chanel bride. Now, as I've said, there are, as much as it's a celebration, and I feel like when it's a celebration, they can't be giving out all these archived looks because they have to have them in the museum. So, but I do feel like they must at least have 5 people allowed to wear archive pieces, and Naomi Campbell should be one of them. Naomi Campbell has been a Chanel girl since Chanel in the 90s, late 80s. She's worked in Chanel Haute Couture, Chanel Ready to Wear. She is through and through a Chanel girl, and I feel like it makes so much sense for her to come in Chanel. In Chanel in the 90s, I feel like that would be so sassy. That would be such a moment. I just don't think of anyone who could give Naomi Campbell the moment other than her in Chanel. Next we have one of the co-chairs of this year's Met, Dua Lipa. You want me? I want you, baby. My sugar boo. I'm levitating. The Milky Way. We're in a guinea. Yeah, 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 yeah. Dua Lipa is a Versace girl, and through, she's definitely wearing Donatella Versace to the Met. But fear not, it is not gonna be as underwhelming as you might think it would be, because Chanel in the 90s is very similar to the aesthetic that Versace in the 90s had. So if Donatella would make something for Dua Lipa that had all the gold, something that is very inspired by Gianni Versace's era, I think that would be iconic. Dua Lipa in Gianni Versace, that would be iconic. I would be gagging for that moment. So I think that would be an interesting pairing. Next, I am thinking Margot Robbie in Chanel. Now, Margot Robbie is the face of Chanel, and it makes so much sense that she wears Chanel to the Karl Lagerfeld exhibit. Though I do think they must design something for her from scratch. It's either that or there is this pink dress that once went down the runway of Chanel. I think if Margot Robbie would wear that, it would be so perfect, because also she's starring in the new movie Barbie, so her in pink makes sense and her in Chanel makes sense. So why not just marry the two and have her come in a pink Chanel haute couture number? Next we have another supermodel, Kate Moss, the mother. Kate Moss. I think Kate Moss in Chanel would make so much sense. Kate Moss usually puts little to no effort to the Met, so I do see her taking something from the Chanel show and putting it on and going down to the Met Gala with no care in the world, and hair half done and white noise, and just being Kate Moss with just lip gloss and not even a lipstick. That's Kate Moss. Someone who I'm very excited to see on the red carpet is Hailey Bieber. Now, we know that Hailey Bieber is a model and stuff, but Hailey Bieber's aesthetic is so synonymous with Versace in the 90s, like the Gianni Versace era. So seeing her in Versace would not surprise me. I think she would body the look. I think she would look gorgeous. I am actually living for a moment to see her walk up those stairs in a Donatella Versace reimagined creation by Gianni Versace. A fave of mine who I can't wait to see on the red carpet is Kim Kardashian. So back in a couple of years ago, Kim Kardashian has had a shoot that was for CR Fashion Book, shot by Karl Lagerfeld. And Karl Lagerfeld has spoken about how he feels like Kim Kardashian is an embodiment of an American starlet and a fashion starlet. So he was very vocal about how he loved Kim, which I mean, as you should, because. But what is very interesting is I think Kim is gonna show up in Dolce and Gabbana because if you think about it, Kim has a collaboration with Dolce and Gabbana, which is inspired by all the archived looks of Dolce and Gabbana and Dolce and Gabbana in the 90s, Dolce and Gabbana in the early 2000s, and if Chanel in the early 90s had this very gold, or not necessarily gold, but they had this very chainmail vibe going on. And in the Kim collection, I think we've seen her wear chainmail in the Kim Dolce and Gabbana collection. We've seen her wear a lot of chainmail material, which if you know Kim, you know that she loves to build up an image. I don't think she is one person who just shows up on the day and she doesn't wake up in one day and decides I'm gonna wear a dress. Once she's decided that I'm doing this look on this day, she will consistently build up and give clues towards that coming day. We've seen with her at the Met when she was doing Balenciaga, she was wearing Balenciaga for like 3 months. We've seen her when she was doing Marilyn Monroe. They went to that correspondence dinner with Pete. I can't believe we've been through the times of Pete. Anyway, but you know, we've seen her, she loves to build up an image, so I really do. It's just also the reason I'm so spot on Dolce & Gabbana is that I haven't seen her being photographed having lunch or meeting with any other designer in the past couple of months besides Dolce & Gabbana. I mean, even when she was in Milan for Fashion Week, she only went into the Dolce & Gabbana show. Even when she was in Paris, she only went into the Dolce & Gabbana show. So it makes so much sense that she's gonna wear Dolce & Gabbana because they would have had so many fittings and back and forth in terms of sketching and what look are they specifically going for. So yeah, Kim in Dolce & Gabbana is where I rest my case, I think. Next we have a Met's favorite, Katy Perry. I think Katy Perry will go in My Zoma Jela by John Galliano because in the past she has went in John Galliano, but also Katy Perry is very camp. So I think with something like this, John Galliano will be able to execute it perfectly. And also I think John Galliano is going to have a big moment on this red carpet because I'm not impressed by the design he put out at Vogue for the shoot, which makes me feel like he was reserving his creativity for not one but multiple people on that red carpet. But you know also who Katy Perry has won on the red carpet, on the red carpet, Jeremy Scott. And right now Jeremy Scott does not have a house, so I'm thinking Jeremy Scott might be auditioning for a house who will take him as a creative. I just got a very crazy thought. Guys, imagine if Jeremy Scott left Moschino to be the creative director at Gucci, because he recently left Moschino and Alessandro Michele left Gucci, and Gucci does not have a creative director. And if you look at Jeremy Scott's history at Moschino, his ideas of camp, Jeremy Scott is the king of camp. He's proven throughout his entire career at Moschino. So imagine if he was the new creative director at Gucci. That would be so interesting. Anyway, moving on, I would definitely think Jeremy Scott is going to dress either Katy Perry or Cardi B because he has dressed both of them in the past and he is auditioning for a new house. He definitely wants to show himself outside Moschino because you know Moschino is very playful, very, they would have a McDonald's all over or whatever, SpongeBob, you know. But now I think he'd want to show himself as a very high-end couture designer instead of like sarcastic or very campy, you know, you get me. Also coming in, I think Kylie Jenner in Schiaparelli. I mean, that would be a moment. We've seen Kylie Jenner in Schiaparelli at the Schiaparelli shows. Schiaparelli, Daniel Roseberry has a good relationship with the Kardashian-Jenner family. So he has sent them clothes in the past that had not even shown down the runway. So I do think I will see Kylie Jenner in Schiaparelli. It will definitely be a moment. So now as we move towards the end, I have two more people. Cara Delevingne and Claudia Schiffer. So Cara Delevingne showing up as Karl Lagerfeld will be iconic. First of all, we know that Cara Delevingne and Karl Lagerfeld had a very good relationship. Cara Delevingne was a Chanel bride multiple times. She was Carl's muse, and that means they had a very good relationship, and Cara has this thing of going against gender norms, and I would say she would come as a Chanel bride, but she has this thing of going against gender norms and breaking stereotypes and whatsoever. So her coming as Karl Lagerfeld will be something that would be very much mind-blowing and unexpected. Well, you guys would expect it because I told you to expect it. What would you do without me? Another person of interest is Claudia Schiffer. Claudia Schiffer has been a Chanel bride 11 times. Imagine how much Karl Lagerfeld has to love you to call you back to close his show 11 times. So for me, if she's coming as a Chanel bride, that is the only thing I'm willing to accept. Claudia Schiffer as a Chanel bride. Ladies and gentlemen, kings and queens, and all those who are yet to decide, we have come to the end of our episode. I can't wait to see what the stars walk up the Met Museum as, and I can't wait to see if I was right, if I was all right, or if I was all left. Until the next episode, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. I can't wait to sit down with you again next week to discuss who wore what, where, well, at the Met Gala, and why.